What thing is secretly just one giant scam? Social media. From their happy beginnings, they are now mostly a funnel used to ram as many advertisements into your mind as inhumanly possible. Sponsored posts every third or fourth item. I see you, IG, FB, Reddit, etc. And that's not even mentioning the extensive filtering network that curates the information you get to see when you are looking for something. Curated information is just a nice expression for you being conditioned to form certain opinions or buy more stuff. Social media grooms minds. Also, these are the things I learned from some light research. Many of you quoted the old saying, when the product is free, you are the product. The earliest attribution that I could find was to an artist named Richard Serra in 1973. To this, I could add there is no such thing as a free lunch. Building and running the internet is not free. In fact, several sources state that the internet consumes over 10% of the global electricity supply. So let that sink in for a bit. Using 10% of the global electricity supply is equivalent to running about half the USA, or Germany plus Canada plus South Korea plus France plus the UK plus Italy. Put another way, 10% of global CO2 emissions from electricity generation are due to running the internet. If we estimate that 50% of internet activity consists of sending around advertising and spam, we have to ask ourselves, is that really worth spending 5% of the world's entire electricity supply on? Or would it not be better to dial that fluff way back and start charging users a fair fee? Speaking for myself, I believe that the internet is an invaluable addition to our lives, and I would be willing to pay a fair and transparent fee for an ad-free, tracker-free, spam-free, bot-free internet experience. Certainly if that means that we'll also save 5% of the world's global electricity. Note that I am not saying the internet should be censored, far from it. Of course, designing and implementing something like that will be very difficult. I think we need to look to the EU for innovations in this space. I also learned that my ad blocking settings were overdue for a refresh. I found that on my iOS device, my iPhone and iPad in particular, it is hard to find effective ad blockers. This is due to the fact that Apple does not allow browsers other than Safari on iOS. The Firefoxes and Chromes you download on those devices are simply copies of Safari with a different jacket slapped onto it, for which Mozilla and Google pay Apple a pretty penny, no doubt. This means that spectacularly effective open source ad blockers that should work on Firefox, Chrome, and the like won't work on your iPhone and iPad. With some digging in the App Store, I did find something that seems to work, but let me not advertise here. Suffice it to say, it is useful to periodically update your ad blocking system, and it seems that free open source blockers are the best of the bunch. Am I contradicting myself by saying that 1, I am willing to pay a fair price for my internet use, but 2, at the same time I am installing ad blockers? Yes, a bit, but I install the ad blockers mainly out of concern for my privacy, which I believe is under heavy attack. Also, I believe the internet media have crossed the line. I mean, I can put up with some clearly identified advertising here and there, but who would enjoy a newspaper if at least 25% of it was overt advertising, and maybe half of the rest was cleverly disguised, highly personalized paid content? If I can take a pair of automated scissors to such a rag, I believe I should. Story 2. One that isn't mentioned much, also doesn't generate much sympathy since it scams businesses instead of individuals. The BBB, the Better Business Bureau, is pretty much a scam. They can collect reports on businesses that aren't members. Plus, merely not being accredited is supposed to be bad. But businesses have to pay for the privilege of being accredited. As far as what it actually does, nothing really. I worked for a large company at the executive response level before, responding to FCC, Federal Communications Commission, and BBB complaints, among other duties. And generally, you just have to summarize your response to what action was taken. It's akin to sharing account notes, basically. So, essentially, complaints don't do anything at all. Nothing is going to happen if you make a BBB complaint. In 99% of cases, it's just yelling to get an officially posted response to the same answer you didn't like the first time. However, if you don't answer them or even refuse to pay for the useless service, then you get dinged because BBB accreditation is supposed to mean something. It's pretty much the white-collar equivalent of a protection racket. I'm sure there are very, very rare cases where legitimate complaints were resolved, but most of these could have been resolved by merely asking for a supervisor. Filter out those cases, and then you have an absolutely minuscule amount that perhaps could be considered legit. meaning I had to tell a supervisor or management they did something wrong or correct any factual issue. And for that minuscule number, I'm pretty sure you could always find alternative pathways that still didn't justify extorting businesses for the privilege. I'm not sure that I can think of one single good thing that was their case in a few years' worth of handling these complaints. The only thing it is good for, the slightest, is spotting complete and obvious scams. But even then, from anything I've ever seen personally at least, it's literally obvious scams, meaning you shouldn't have needed the BBB to notice. I'm talking like a computer software company that sells cheap copies of Windows and such. Super obvious stuff. And yet, for this minuscule service, they get to charge most businesses for quote unquote protection, aka accreditation, because a great BBB rating is ingrained as good and no accreditation has successfully been ingrained as bad. Also, consumers are trained to think a complaint hurts a business rating. Does not at all. Not responding to a complaint is the only thing that hurts the rating, or not bothering to pay to be accredited. I mean, if you try to start your own business on the same sort of model, I'm pretty sure you could end up with charges. The closest thing is literally a mob protection racket. You can pay us for protection from bad or no accreditation. In exchange, we won't beat you up. Declare in neon letters that you didn't pay us to be accredited. It makes no sense how highly they are regarded. Okay, so I learned something new today. I will no longer put any weight on any BBB ratings I find online. I'm just gonna have to check them out on Yelp. Wait a minute, Yelp? Story 3. To be honest, the child support system. It was clearly created to keep the payer under its thumb. My ex lied about my wages when she first filed, and because it was overlooked, I was ordered to pay $1,300 for our one child. I have 2 other children now, and my wife and I have had to endure the loss of our home, passport, evictions, chasing down warrants left and right because of past due child support, multiple license reinstatement fees, and even living in a tent for a stint. For 2 years, I was unable to afford to fly over to see my child. She does not allow my daughter to speak to any family members except for myself. When someone attempts to say hello, the mother hangs up. So she's going on 7 years old and has yet to meet my mother and father or my brother and his family, which excludes his daughters that are her age. Then the virus hit, so another year has gone by without seeing my baby. We have filed petition after petition to get the CS amount lowered, but to no avail. There are also fees and taxes on late payment, so the amount comes out to $1,475. I've gone through 2 lawyers who have tried to get it lowered but were denied by the judge. I know CS is important, but it seems a system that was established decades ago when men received slaps on the wrist for child abandonment is causing modern families to pay for the sins of our fathers, and the system does not reflect the times. There's so many fathers out there trying to do the right thing. The system is such a harsh game to play, and most fathers end up giving up, working under the table, or worse. Then amazing women who step up and fight by their husbands' sides end up tangled in the webs as well, which tends to cause damage to themselves. Story 4. Money. Brief history. Before money, we used precious metals and gems, etc. for exchange. Carrying around all this precious, heavy stuff was dangerous and difficult, so people kept their wealth in banks that issued receipts. The receipts were easy to store and became the medium of exchange since everyone's confidence in the banks meant that the notes they issued were equivalent to the gold they stood for. So far, so good. Then the bankers noticed that most of the gold that people kept with them was never claimed, so if they issued notes for gold they didn't actually have, those notes would be treated as if they had real value, and most of the time, nobody would notice. This meant banks could conjure up money out of nowhere, and this made them pretty wealthy. Oh, but it gets better. The banks also issued loans for money they didn't have, so they were earning interest on money they never had in the first place. Bankers eventually became richer than kings. When the whole scheme became public, rather than being shut down and sacrificing the economy, we decided to give it the official sounding name, fractional reserve banking, making it legal and just carry on like it wasn't a giant scam. Almost there. The fractional amount banks were required to have in reserve varied over time, but as recently as a few years ago, it was as low as 10%. This meant that if a bank had $1 in savings, they could issue loans of up to $10 on that $1 amount. Now here's the kicker. In March 2020, in the United States, the fractional requirement was dropped to 0%. Nothing, nada, zip, zilch. Banks now have the power to issue any amount at all without anything of value to back it up. Money is now purely fictional. held up by our mutual agreement to be screwed by generational billionaires. Ta-da! And there you go, the magic of the economy, making something out of nothing, and they get to take everything for only a select few. Great. Story 5. Casinos. All of the casinos in my state have video poker and video slot machines. There are barely any table games left. No one is happy, no one is having fun. It's just a room full of zombies feeding the machines and losing money. Every person I talk to is convinced that they know the secret formula to winning. You cannot win. It might sound trivial, but the old slots were just a spinning reel. These new machines are extremely addictive. The way the lights flash and the sounds go off is like bing, 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 winner of 40 cents. The entire thing is a psychology hack to give people the impression that they're winning when they're not. Also, there's a really interesting episode of This American Life podcast about this. The new machines are regulated in the sense that the odds have to be legit. So for example, the machine might have to have a 1 to 1,000 chance of hitting some particular jackpot. However, there is no regulation with respect to what the spins and reels look like on those other 999 attempts. So they're programmed to constantly show these near misses, giving the false impression that you kept coming so close to winning. They did a study of folks with gambling addictions, and the reward neurotrigger in the brain for these near misses was nearly the same as with legit wins. Story 6. Back to base security system monitoring. Huge scam. My smart home security system alerts me faster than ADT ever did, the biggest offenders. When you don't answer the call, they'll send out someone and charge you a fee. And every time your system messes up, it will send false error codes to the monitoring station, which they will charge you a huge fee to fix. I know, if you want to disconnect it, the guy I spoke to from ADT was going to charge me $250 call out, plus $50 for every 15 minutes he was at my house, and the job would have taken at least an hour, they said, and they may need to go into the roof. No, I just called a security installation electrician and he said $50 to call out and $30 for every 30 minutes he was there, but that was depending on the type of job. He was at my house for 5 minutes. Power off, remove power wires from the control box, protect the wires so they're safe, replace the cover on the control box, done. He only charged $50 compared to ADT's service, which would have cost about $450. All right, hey there, your support means everything while we go ahead and take a break in the middle of these stories, so please remember to like and subscribe to my channel and help keep giving me the motivation to keep rolling out these interesting stories. Thank you in advance, and now let's go ahead and get back to the scams that are so normal we don't even realize it. This is story 7. This might be unpopular, but here goes. The Catholic Church. Currently worth $30 billion, the Vatican has $8 billion in assets. In 2014, it was discovered they were hiding $1.1 billion off the records. Why aren't these funds going to the poor? In 2019, it was discovered that the Vatican was heavily invested in unreported luxury apartments. Then there's the ugly stuff. All this money is financing. Until 2014, the age of consent in Vatican City was 12. Yes, 12 is the lowest age of consent in the world. It was only changed after the taboo relationship scandal took hold. Then there's a wide history of evils brought on by the church, the ivory trade, caption of young boys, castrada, the Spanish Inquisition, Holocaust denial, cutting funding for the poor with LGBTQ ties, and on and on. The Catholic Church provides a thin veneer of good for their followers, but for centuries, they've been feeding corruption beneath the surface and continue to do so. Story 8. Student loans. What started as an assistant program to help democratize higher education so it wasn't just for the super wealthy, has turned into a limitless source of profits for lenders and colleges, even state and public universities. Schools are now immune to market price pressure. No matter how high they raise fees, prospective students will always be able to get enough loan money to meet them. On the lender's side, they have no incentive to screen either borrowers or schools because the loans are almost impossible to absolve. You can default, but you still owe for life. It's some of the only debt you can't discharge into bankruptcy. So every lender is happy to give a 6-figure check to wide-eyed 18-year-olds who have near zero real-world or job experience and have been sold a wing and a dream by college recruiters. The only people who bear any risk in the whole system are the students, who are told from day one of kindergarten by parents, teachers, TV, every motivational speaker that drives by, and absolutely the recruiters, that you go to college or you're a complete waste. Whatever it takes, go get that degree. Also, the thing I hate about the current educational system in the United States is that it is designed to put a student into debt. As of 2020 to 2021, the average amount a student can expect to pay for 1 year's in state tuition and fees is $25,864 at a 4 year state university, and out of state tuition is $43,721. As of 2021, the maximum amount of federal Pell Grant money a student can get per year is only $6,495. That leaves the in-state student with $19,369 they have to cover somehow, and that almost always means borrowing the money. As a result, it's common to see a student graduate college with a bachelor's degree and well over $50,000 to $60,000 in debt that they'll have to start paying off about 6 months after they get out of college. The government knows this, and the lending institutions know this. Students getting screwed by the system. That's right, preach, sister. Story 9. U.S. Healthcare. The CEO of one insurance company made $26 million in 2018. The average compensation of insurance company CEOs was $18 million in 2018. Those people make that money because they have found ways to squeeze more insurance premiums out of people while at the same time finding ways to refuse to pay for healthcare. The more healthcare their customers have access to, the less money the insurance company can make. The less you pay in premiums, the less the insurance company can make. And again, this isn't the profits of the whole insurance company. This is just one person from each company. The individual companies make billions off preventing you from getting experimental treatment for cancer or finding loopholes to avoid paying your medical fees. This is the greatest healthcare system in the world, except for every other rich nation in the world. Now here's another take. How about you give me around $400 a month, and when you need medical attention, I'll pay for it, but only up to a certain percent. You'll pay the rest. And only once your deductible is reached, which could be thousands of dollars, and I'll have the power to deny or alter any service or medication your doctor prescribes. You will also pay a copayment. In addition, I'll work tirelessly to directly manipulate the medical market to ensure the largest possible profit to me, culminating in now common situations where people in life-threatening situations who have my insurance leave emergency rooms with tens of thousands of dollars in debt. This will also tempt hospitals into shady practices that lead to normal posts like Life Pro Tip, ask for an itemized receipt at the hospital. Lastly, I will scam America so frickin' hard that the majority of the public will actually vote against national health care or some other alternative when it's already been proven to work efficiently in less powerful, less wealthy countries. And when someone on the street says they don't have health insurance, many people will look at them like they're irresponsible. Story 10. I'm probably going to get a load of hate, but I can't help feeling like cryptocurrency is the world's biggest scam, possibly ever in all history. Millions of people have been convinced that they should trade collective billions of fiat currency for internet tokens with no intrinsic value that don't do anything as a way of getting rich quick. They'll say they like the technology or it will be revolutionary and doom the current financial system by giving power to the masses. All cult BS. Crypto doesn't solve any problems that people have. It's been around for over a decade and there is no mass adoption. It's not useful at all. People just like it because their numbers go up, but when the music stops and people run for the exits, they'll all get burned. It's a less than zero-sum game. Money only goes into the crypto ecosystem via people paying their money for crypto. Money leaves via mining costs, exchange fees, etc. How is everyone here gonna get rich? There's not any real or tangible value here. It's a real emperor has no clothes moment. Who knows how long it'll carry on for? Story 11. Credit reports. The whole system is set up to filter people into one of three categories. The first is people who have the means to pay back their loans and constantly take loans. These people can have as many loans as they want. The second is people who have the means to pay back their loans but do their best to avoid being taken advantage of and are successful because they already have capital. These people have poor or no credit and will be loaned to, which is what the system is trying to weed out and shove into economic poverty. Third is people who desperately want or need to improve their credit score, so they take safe methods to do so. These people are one accident or one bad day away from being sent into a spiral of late and overdue fees. If it wasn't a scam, you would gain credit for simply being a decent human being who is fiscally responsible. But rather, it punishes you for being responsible and urges everyone to get credit cards. If it wasn't a scam, you wouldn't be charged and would take a credit hit whenever you wanted to check your own credit score. And that's a wrap on this discussion about the giant scams hiding in plain sight. But hey, if you're hungry for more truth bombs, hop on over to the next video. What's the biggest scams in life that no one wants to admit? Story 3 is a big reality check. I'll see you there. Thank you for watching this one.